This is Roach. How do I join after being in the waiting room? I dragged you, Roach. I dragged you over twice. All right, Roach. We're gonna try this again. What's up, buddy?
Oh, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Amazing. Okay. You're gonna hate this, but
I'm
I'm
gonna
a
hate
huge
this.
Knight fan, man. I think they're the best. I don't see why so many people just totally dump on them. I mean, I think they may be the best subclass for sure. I mean, if you just look at their abilities, if you take shield and absorb elements, you're already gonna have possibly one of the best fighters that you ever could, just with that alone. You know what I mean?
You said Eldritch Knight.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is what makes them so bad? I mean, you look at them like they can't be disarmed, right? That's amazing. I think they're the only class that can do that. They can cast 2 spells in a turn, right? Because of action surge. So that's pretty crazy. I think that's really underrated. But I also feel like their weapon bond ability is extremely slept on. I mean, they could have a giant's weapon jump into the air with the jump spell and drop it on somebody, right? Or they can summon things. I mean, I guess the thing is with the weapon bond, it's like there's no predetermined notion of like what is a weapon really, right? Like it could be in a massive, 200-foot stone sword, and I guess that's technically a weapon, right?
Okay.
So I guess the question is, why does everyone hate Eldritch Knight so much? What makes them so bad, in your opinion?
Okay. So the thing that I don't like about them, and I haven't really, honestly, I don't think I've run an Eldritch Knight. So I don't necessarily think they're bad. I just think that I just don't really know much about them. I don't like that the school that they have a school restriction, abjuration evocation. That's kind of lame.
Yeah,
Also,
definitely.
here's a simple question. What role are you trying to fill? Do you want to hit really hard with the weapon, or do you want to hit really hard with spells? Do you want your spells to be support, or do you want them to do damage? I think the issue with it is that they're trying to do too many things.
Yeah, I
Um,
would I would agree with that for sure. I definitely think if you go into an Eldritch Knight and you think you're going to be doing big damage spells, I think you're looking at the class wrong, like 100%. But I think as far as you take the fighter, right, which is just great no matter what subclass you pick, really.
mhm.
And then when you get to add the spells on top of it, it just becomes really, really great. I mean, and you're right, you are restricted, but you do get some free ones, right? So you do get
Yeah.
like I think 5 from any magic school. So
Yeah, I think after at a certain point you do get to choose any spell.
I think and then in addition, like you get to attack with a cantrip and then attack as a bonus action. So I don't know. I just feel like they're really I see everyone is just like taking dumps on the Eldritch Knight, and I'm like I don't understand why because they're so great. I mean, it's really hard. I would say this. I'd say it's impossible to have a bad Eldritch Knight, no matter how you build it, really. Because if you take, like I said, if you take shield and absorb elements, you're already going to be super tanky. You're going to get to attack multiple times. You can action surge, cast 2 spells. You can, summon a weapon. You can never be disarmed. And yeah, I just think they're great overall.
Not being disarmed sounds really cool on paper, but I can't even think of a monster off the top of my head that actually disarms, or an ability or anything that actually disarms.
Yeah, you're right. But I think it comes down to maybe it's like, when you're fighting other human type NPCs, right? So, or let's say somebody's trying to steal your weapon or, something like that. But I also think what I guess the main thing for me, the main thing about the Eldritch Knight that is so like open ended is the fact that all you have to do is spend an hour next to some weapon, which it doesn't define, it just says a weapon, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's very open ended. And then you touch it and the bond's done, and then you can summon it to your hand. So like you could steal, let's say you have some time with I don't know, you're in jail, right? You could steal the jailer's weapon or an NPC's weapon if you had the right setup, or you could, let's say you're going to fight a fire giant, right? If you could successfully sneak, maybe even invisibly, and then spend an hour, now you've disarmed that enemy, that huge giant's greatsword for, an infinite amount of time. Just with a bonus action, you can disarm them, right? You could run away, drop it, 40 feet away. I mean, you know what I
You
mean?
said it takes an hour.
So it takes an hour the first time,
So if you've
right?
got an
So
hour with the fire giant, you can pretty much already do whatever you want with it. Right? If you've got an hour
that's
with
true,
it, you might
right?
already be
That's
dead.
true. Yeah, yeah. But
Um,
let's say like you're invisible, or I guess let's say, yeah, I don't
so
know. I guess
go
I just
so go invisible, go up to the fire giant, mess with their weapon for an hour, and then it's yours, and you can summon it away. That seems like so. That would be an example. I think that's a really good example of what we were just talking about earlier, of like how much effort you just had to go through to disarm. Like we really don't have any good disarm mechanics for the because like the way you just described that disarm was you had to burn a second level spell. If you're gonna burn a second level spell to disarm someone, heat metal, which I realize the fire giant example specifically
right,
is not
right,
gonna work,
yeah.
but you get what I'm you get where I'm coming from. So I want to ask you as the Eldritch Knight expert, and look, I appreciate that you have a. You know what's great about everybody not liking something that you love? I'm all about the Ranger and the Beastmaster Ranger. People sleep on that. I think that's one of the strongest classes in the game. Being able to bonus action your pet, always giving advantage to yourself and your other. I can sit here and talk about the Beastmaster. The fact that people sleep on it, I mean, that makes it yours, man. Show them how good it is. Like, if you sit down at the D&D table and you're like Eldritch Knight and everybody's like, ha, man, that sucks. Why? You're gonna be like, I'll show you. That's the fun part.
Hundred
Um,
percent, 100%. But okay,
but
real quick, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I wanna ask, what does so I want you to let's do a one for one comparison. What does the level 5 Eldritch Knight do that the wizard can't? Besides the disarm.
He could attack twice with a martial weapon,
Okay.
right? So
Is that better
that's
than a third level spell?
no, it's not. But this is what else he can do is he can. What I love about the Eldritch Knight is it's one of the classes, and maybe even the only class that is a solid B tier at literally every role of the party, right? So if you need to be a damage dealer with the Eldritch Knight, you can do it. But in this with the same build and the same character, you can transition into a frontline tank, right? So I just think as far as what can it do that a wizard can't, obviously it can't cast fireball, right? It's at level 5, you're not dropping a fireball.
Mm-hmm.
But what you could do is sit back and pepper arrows into somebody and misty step around, or you could be on the front line taking damage with a shield and absorb element spell. You can basically maybe not be the best at any one thing, but you could do all the roles, pretty well. And I think basically what it comes down to is what the Eldritch Knight can do is it can take a beating for sure compared to the wizard.
That
Like
is true.
I would not have any problem taking my Eldritch Knight one on one, just with mobility, defense, and attack DPS, right? Because let's say like Green Flame Blade, like at level 5, pretty good. Maybe not as good as 2 attacks. Depends on the weapon, right? Depends on what kind of build you're going for. But I just think, and you know what else? I will say this: it is outdated, and it was a player's handbook class. So I
Mm-hmm.
do feel like if Eldritch Knight came out a year from now, it would obviously be different. But yeah, I think as far as DPS, you may be, beaten by the wizard, but you're definitely going to be a better tank. Are you as good as the barbarian? Probably not, right? But your options are more open, and I think mobility wise, right? You have that option to misty step out, or you have the option to sit there and stop somebody grapple, right? You can grapple as an Eldritch Knight, which maybe you could do as a wizard because there are builds out there and things that allow you to do that. But I'd say just overall, doesn't matter what race you have. If you pick Eldritch Knight as a subclass, I think you're going to be okay and adaptable to any situation. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's the Eldritch Knight's greatest strength, right? Is the adaptability to be, kind of like the Swiss Army knife of classes, right?
Okay. You've
But
convinced me. I want to
yeah,
try Eldritch Knight now.
this is the question I have for you though, and don't sleep on the weapon bond, right? Because like, let's say you disarm that. This is the part I meant to I left out. So you disarm the fire giant, but because of the falling object rules, you can with a first level jump spell jump up and now you can drop it on his head and do tons of damage, right? Or you could go and basically be a one man siege weapon, right? Because a ballista is a weapon, right? You can. There's so many, like the term. It just says weapon. It doesn't even have to say you can wield it or anything. There's no restrictions other than it being a weapon. So it's like that particular part of it's, I think, probably since nobody plays it, nobody's looked at it as being overpowered, but it's extremely overpowered. If somebody casts fly on you and you have a giant fire greatsword off of a fire giant and you just continually drop it on people, you're gonna win a battle no matter what you're fighting, probably most of the time. But my question for you is, in all seriousness now, what's your actual favorite subclass?
For fighter, probably the Rune Knight. Those runes are just too dang cool. You've kind of sold me on the Eldritch Knight. I want to try it, but the Rune Knight, like the fire shackles, the being able to move. So when something swings at you, you can move. What is the cloud rune where like if something attacks you, you can make them target something else instead? Absolutely incredible. Love the Rune Knight.
Yeah. One last thing that the Eldritch Knight can do at level 5 that the wizard cannot, and that's cast 2 spells in a turn without the need of a feat or anything else like that.
Valid.
Yeah.
Valid. The wizard does get haste though.
That is very true. That is one thing about I wish they were more. I wish that the Eldritch Knight had been not a third caster, whatever they are, a fifth caster, whatever they're classified as, and I wish they'd been more like a paladin as far as their like level ups in the spell slots. Because you are right, it's a slow grind. Like you're not getting those third level spells till way, way, way late in the game.
Actually, I got a question for you. Which one do you think does what you described better? Blade Singer? I feel like we need to have like a hotline where we just talk about builds. Which one do you think does what you described better, Blade Singer or Eldritch Knight? Because the more we talk about it, the more I'm thinking Blade Singer might actually like own this.
I think it's the difference for me having played them both, right? The Blade Singer is the sprinter, and the Eldritch Knight is in it for the long run. He is the marathon runner, right? Because of the short rest mechanics and the things that they get on that. I just feel like even without your spell slots, or okay, let's say this: you have a
Hexblade.
Blade Singer, right? Hexblade's pretty good, right? You have a Blade Singer, right? And you're out of Blade songs. Are you gonna feel great about not being proficient in Constitution saving throws and going toe to toe with a monster, right? With melee weapons, or are you gonna sit back and cast Firebolt? And I kind of feel like with the Eldritch Knight, at the worst case scenario, you don't have an action surge. Maybe you can't heal. You're up there, but I would feel confident in putting my Eldritch Knight. I don't know. That's a tough question. I think you're right. You're making a good point because yes, you can do more damage faster with the Blade Singer, but as I guess it really depends on the environment you're playing in and how many short rests you have. Like, are you in a dungeon, right? And like, so
Well,
yes, I think
well,
you're
I
right.
was well, I wasn't necessarily talking about damage. It's just the Eldritch or the Blade Singer has access to the entire wizard spell list, and the Eldritch. Did I say Eldritch Knight? The Blade Singer has access to the entire wizard spell. You know what? I would 100% simp for the freaking Eldritch Knight if they didn't have a magic school restrictions. If they just could like pull spells from because it feels like you said they're already like a quarter caster or a third caster. And I just hate that the restriction. Like they really don't need that.
Yeah, I think you're right because you don't feel like you're not going to go in as an Eldritch Knight and cast like a big spell and do a bunch of damage. It's definitely more utility, right? Like, which is why I also think they may be better than the Blade Singer. Just the fact that you could dump intelligence and be a great Eldritch Knight still, right? Because you could cast jump or let's say, increase your movement speed by 10, or even if you're just Misty stepping, right? And you've already got shield, which neither of those things, even absorb elements, they don't really require a high intelligence to use, right? So there's a lot of spells that you can take that don't require intelligence, and then you've got Constitution saving throw proficiency. I don't know. It's definitely tough, but you're right. Not having access to the full spell list is very, very annoying.
Yeah. Earlier you asked my favorite subclass. It didn't occur to me that were you talking about in general or for fighter?
Yeah, just in general. I always make these posts. I'm like, hey, what's your favorite subclass? Why is it Eldritch Knight? But I just want to know what's your actual favorite subclass?
My actual favorite is Beastmaster. I love pets. I love being able to summon the pet. It doesn't go anywhere. If it dies, you can always bring it back using Tasha's rules. If it dies, you can always come back and always give you advantage. I love pets. I love the warlock and the hunter in Warcraft. Shaman was my favorite, but they get elemental pets kind of. Pets are just cool. You can choose a flying one. You can choose an aquatic one. Pets are my jam. You can ride one if you're a small creature.
Super awesome. Definitely also, yeah, like you said, a very slept on subclass. I think a lot of people discount it, but it is really good.
Yep.
For sure. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you listening to my rant. And yeah, we'll definitely have to, I've got some really good builds. I'll send them to you at some point so you can try them out and see what you think.
I am playing a fighter on Thursday. I think I'm going to ask my DM if I can change my subclass. I'm going to try the Eldritch Knight. You've convinced me.
Yeah, don't fall in. This is the trap I did the first time I played one. Don't, because you have access to, it wants you to pick evocation spells, right? Like, I think magic missile's great, but don't fall into the trap of thinking like you should cast them. Like, definitely save your spell slots for shield and absorb elements. And I think if you just do those two things off the bat, you'll be a great Eldritch Knight for sure.
All right, noted. You take it easy, bud.
All righty, man. You too.